reinventing the wheel, when all you have to realize is that everybody's got the same problems, and what are you doing?
Yeah.
Who are knowledge.
And there's other people who have a similar calling and mission and vision. And if we can find those folks who really align with us, we may be able to do something together.
Something I didn't hear that I was curious, and the question came after we disconnected, but were there people in the present building furnishings for the dwellings as well?
No, actually, well, are they doing it now?
Well, I just wondered, I mean, if they're doing all this work, it seems like there would be an avenue to, well, like, we're gonna build beds, and we're gonna build couches, and we're gonna build
They
dressers.
built places for those, but, people have to buy their own beds to bring in.
Right.
I don't
I
know.
think that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's right here, we can just follow along in the same
Yeah.
concept.
And some of the tiny homes, I think, most of that's even built in.
Yes.
I mean, it's a part of the construction.
Right.
Mhm.
Is the bed, then all you
And
need
it
is a
doubles or
mattress,
something.
kind
Yes,
of thing,
yes.
so.
And the bureaus are, like dressers and things like that are built in, I'm sure, with drawers and kitchens and stuff like that. Yeah.
I think that when you said that people want that spiritual component, that we minimize our calling of what we're actually providing for the community. I think people want that spiritual component, and we don't give it as often as we could,
Almost shy about
I guess.
Yeah.
Well, our new
Shy
plan
about
initiative
giving-
should be addressing that problem in the Salvation Army.
Yeah, I mean,
Staying focused on why we do what we do.
and that's really good because lots of times we're finding that as Christians are serving more and more in their communities, instead of asking people qualifying questions for evangelism, people are actually asking Christians serving, who are you and why are you doing this?
Yes.
So the question comes to us, if we're doing it well, if we're doing it lovingly, we always have to be prepared with a good answer that'll help point people to Jesus Christ, right?
it. Sometimes we get even shy, they use that as a purpose, we get even shy of talking from a spiritual perspective, because you don't want the service that you're delivering to seem like it's a recruiting process.
Yeah, it has to be authentic.
Tell soup kitchen, if you listen to the sermon, you can eat tonight.
Well, there are a lot of rescue missions just like that, aren't there? You gotta listen to that sermon first, and then you can eat your dinner. Yeah.
So in that same line that we, in fact, just had a conversation about this, that we are not pastors. We are core officers. And pastors, one of the things that we do is not everything that we do. And our ministry, our congregation is our community, which is why we're called core officers and not pastors in the summer.
Okay, that's good.
Help me
Yes.
understand that a little more. I don't know that I understood what you just said. When you said we're
So-
not pastors, we're,
We are, because a pastor is usually, this is your congregation to pastor.
so
okay?
you, because you're an officer, you have a
As a
larger.
core officer, being a pastor of a congregation is one of the things we do.
Yeah.
But we also have the administrator, we also have the fundraiser, we also have the shelter. So our pastorship is really our community.
Your congregation's larger.
Our
than-
congregation is the community
Yeah,
and not
yeah.
our church.
Yeah, your stewardship extends beyond.
Right, and so that's what he said, God called me to ministry, but not ministry as a pastor.
Got it.
Every Salvation Army officer should be called a core officer, not a pastor.
Yeah. Hmm.
Now, I know we're gonna have some other stuff in there, but that's one of the things that we do.
What I love about that is a lot of times when Reggie and I are talking to groups of pastors of churches, we're trying to help them see that the fields are white for harvest, that your congregation may be the members of your church here, but you're pastoring your community.
Honestly, we're trying to help church leaders act more like the Salvation Army,
We are.
and the Salvation Army to act less like church.
Yeah.
Ooh, that hurt.
Because the church as institution is a losing proposition. I mean, you're going down with the Titanic.
Yes.
And that's not what people are looking for. So
That's right.
that's why we say you have the DNA in your movement. Good heavens, reclaim the DNA of your movement.
See,
That
Jesus,
says-
that's right. Go ahead.
No, it's all right, Glenn, it's something important.
I really do. I think that, Reggie, you're either really onto something, you're on something. I'm not sure which.
You don't have to do either or.
No, I really think, when we think about what Jesus was doing, what was he trying to do? Was he trying to have a box on every corner where people meet once a week for worship? Or was he really trying to create a worshiping people who go into their vocations scattered throughout society, serving Christ wherever they go as a movement? And, it seems like the worship is meant to be that time. Pastors think of themselves as great equippers, but often they're given a pep talk, and they're sending folks out, and they often feel ill-equipped when they get into their place of leadership in society where they're working. And we want every person to feel fully equipped in serving as part of a movement that Jesus started long ago. Yeah.
Sorry, Paige. So that was part of our influencer, was that whenever we were talking about our employees and our clients and our employees, that when we let them cross-train and be part of ministry because of COVID, we had to have everybody giving out food during our drive-through. We had to have everybody out doing stuff. And so when they got to actually be part of the ministry, even if they were in social services, even they got to be part of the whole ministry, then they had more buy-in there.
Amen.
Even if that wasn't their intention in the first place.
Yeah, you may get to know something about the people they're serving behind the scenes in the administrative.
It makes you wonder if that ought to be a routine requirement.
And that's what it just.
It should be.
Good word. Yes,
I
Peggy.
just want to mention, so I'm not a pastor, obviously, I'm not an officer of the Salvation Army, I'm a supporter. I was just going to mention that the shyness that was brought up, I think is important to, I guess, tread lightly when it comes to, so when you're out in the community, I guess what I'm trying to explain is when you're out in the community, you're talking about how great the Salvation Army is and all the great things it does from, all the services and so forth. For someone like me and others that perhaps are not part of it and not pastors and don't normally go to church and stuff, we want to understand its purpose, right? And so its final purpose as to why it's being done in the community, what the needs are, because to me that is important. It's important to make sure that the community is being helped and who is that agency that the community is helping, why. So for me, it was great to hear when the captain told me when we first met, that the purpose is to help people, right? It's to help others, and it is to help the community grow in the right way, in the ways that we wanted it to grow, with assistance and help with through living, affordable housing, whatever it is. And it wasn't so much the preaching like a pastor, because if that was the case, because I hear that a lot, and if that's the case, then for me, I would have been a little bit more hesitant, because that's not what I'm looking for. What I was looking for is to help the community, and I think this is the one, I truly believe this is the one agency that does that, and you already have that reputation. And so it is something that you guys should grab onto when you're speaking to local leaders and run with it, because it's a great advantage you have over anyone else. And sometimes I feel like the Salvation Army doesn't realize their strength in that perspective.
That's exactly why you're in this room, because, you are uniquely equipped to call the party. The Salvation Army is uniquely equipped and positioned, I should say, in the community to call the party, because no one sees you really as a competitor. I mean, churches don't. They're not worried that you're going to steal people away from their rock concert every
week.
every Sunday that comes in, the corn deal, press deal, or whatever. And so, they just don't see that as so you're safe to them.
Yes.
At the same time, they don't want to do what you do.
Exactly.
They don't want to get dirty. This is what Booth said. We want to help people churches don't want. This is all the way back to who you were to begin with. And that's why I say if the Salvation Army didn't exist, God would have to create it.
Right.
That's why we're working with you
Yeah.
And, we think that you just, if you own that part of yourself, and the commissioners is telling you stuff that everybody needs to take back and quote her on, I mean, own that part of who you are. That is your uniqueness that qualifies you for this.
Because it's interesting that we're having this discussion because, I don't know, some time ago, I heard this term and we shared with me, that resonated with me. You all don't know this, but oftentimes I get asked by pastors, hey pastor, hey, are you a pastor? You know, it was just hitting me, I'm like, this is a calling, what are you trying to say? But because I had bought into this term long before these accusations were happening, right? I kind of understood who I was.
Yeah.
And I could comfortably say, no, I'm not a pastor, I'm not a pastor. But in truth, the full answer that I want to give is I believe in marketplace ministry. And that's what I consider myself doing. When I go out into the community and I'm helping kids and I'm helping people and I'm doing whatever it is I feel like I can do for, that'll be a blessing to someone else. I call it marketplace ministry.
Yeah, that's good.
So I'm not a pastor, but I do practice
There you
marketplace
go.
ministry.
Well, thank God for that.
Well, we took the word, it's okay if I say something, we took those biblical, Ephesians 4, pastors, prophets, and we turned them into church jobs. Now, those weren't church jobs. Nobody had a church job when Ephesians 4 was written. And it was a function. You are a pastor. If you're gifted as a pastor, you work at Best Buy, but you're going to be pastoring everybody, within the reach of your influence, because that's just who you are. So, I mean, I think we've got to let our lay folks in on, hey, we don't own pastor, prophet, teacher. The body has this throughout. They just don't know.
Peter says we're all called to the priesthood.
I mean, for crying out loud, we just don't know. Anyway, y'all do. Some of you, we're working on the rest of it. But I really do. I just spoke to your territory. He's talking about work with Salvation Army. I was in California last week with Salvation Army. And, this is a system-wide need of your movement. Every territory needs to come out and play. And this flush money that's been put out by the government now to help cities solve problems, you can help them solve it. You can help them spend it. I mean, because now's the time. There's never been, and I listen to evangelicals just rip and snort about the money the government's putting out, and I'm going, why don't you see it as an opportunity instead of, just against your political philosophy or whatever. It's done. Seize the moment. Let's help cities heal. It's about self-healing. And they're not going to be healed from Washington.
No.
I mean, or the state capital. They're going to be healed community by community.
Locally.
It's hand-to-hand combat.
And this is a great opportunity for us because I think one of our weaknesses in the past is I've seen extensive surveys, cost a lot of money, and the average Joe on the street, tell me about the Salvation Army. We love you. And what do? They ring bells. Well, if we get involved like this, because I see in the past few years that our marketing has really, you can't fall out of a well. So it has jumped to where we're starting to market ourselves and people are starting to know us for what we truly do.
Still not enough.
It's still not enough, but it's, again, you can't fall out of a well. We're getting better. So if we can seize on this that we're talking about here and combine it with a better effort to market who we are and whose we are, then we can really benefit.
And I'll tell you, your best marketing is as you do what we're talking about doing here, calling the party in your communities for self-healing, and you begin to get the stories of that circulating.
Mm-hmm.
Your best marketers are going to be the people that have been helped back in. And the cities, the county commissioners and the city council members and the locals that are saying, we couldn't have done this without the Salvation Army. You don't even have to print your own banner. I mean, they'll print it for you and run the thing.
But that's exactly what when I was trying to explain it, but what I did not ever see when I first became commissioner and prior was the Salvation Army logo anywhere. And I know the Salvation Army, not because I've worked with them in the past, not because anyone's tutored me on it or said. It was just because I knew that the ringing of the bell and they helped people. That's all I knew. That's as far as I knew until we actually started collaborating and when we met. But this is to go back to something you said, this is the one-time opportunity in Florida that any organization is ever going to have to go back to their counties and cities and collect as much money as you can. We will never see this amount of money that we've gotten in Osceola County. Orange County is getting over $100 million. We got 74 million. This is the second lot of money. We've never seen this before in history. I was able to get $1 million for each of our districts just to play with. I mean, you have to realize it's the first and only time you will ever have this chance. So now you can't get the money with the reputation you have, then something is wrong. You need to go back and get that money because it's there, it's out for the picking, and 5 people or whatever, 8 people, depending on your county and cities, will be making those decisions. So those are the ones you need to influence as soon as possible to get that funding because we want to spend it. We have to. We're not going to give it back.
And by the way, our relationship started in the winery.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. That's okay, don't tell everyone. I have people meeting me there.
I've got a client who has a ministry called Wine in the Water. And all of the proceeds from the wine sales go to building clean water equipment.
Ah, that's
And
good.
I think that's very clever and
That's
sent
Yeah.
in Honduras. And so, you know, I feel really good about it right now. Let's do it like Jesus. What would Jesus drink? Is that gotta be double
Wine.
take?
That's right, that's what it's.
Well, this has been a great conversation. We debriefed a little bit about Eric. We're gonna take a break now.
Well, we
and
have time if we, oh, yeah, we don't, yeah. Whatever you said.
We're gonna take a break now, Rich.
Yeah, okay.
And we'll meet back here at 10 after 2.
All right.
Before
Okay.
you,
Oh,
Saturday,
that's right. Angela has something.
we are offering a tour for anyone who wants to take a tour of the campground. I know that Dee and Dee Dee would like to go, so is any